And hello, everyone. I'm Avril, and I'd like to interview all the great people around the world and spread your wisdom to the whole world. And today, I'm very happy to have this conversation with Alex Steinberg. Alex Steinberg, Fang Zeang, and he's a business advisor, industry expert, speaker, and coach, focused on health and lifestyle. Alex's personal mission is to positively impact the lives of 700 million people. Wow. Today, I'm very happy to have you here, Alex. Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Sure, you're welcome.
I'd like to start it with your name. So your Chinese name is Fang Zeang. Is there anything particular of your name?
为什么方这样？因为地方的方是我去好多地方富人，所以这是为什么方地方的方。毛泽东的字Mao Zedong achieved Jiang Zemin. They achieved great accomplishments for the Chinese people. I love China, so 字以昂首的昂。Because originally I'm from Germany, so 昂首的昂比较合适。
Wow, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, it's a great name. I like it. Thank you. So, what brings you to China?
China, I have been fascinated by China, the history, the culture, the philosophy. Since childhood, and my journey started when I was a child, and strangely people in Germany always said I had Chinese eyes, so my eyes are smaller than typically Germans have, so that confused me a lot when I was a child, but it was sort of a yuanfen. It was almost like a destiny that someday I would go to China, and I always knew in my heart that somehow I would be there, even when I was a child and knew hardly anything about it. But it was a strange feeling in my heart that I always belonged there.
Wow. So since you came here, do you get used to the environment and the food, everything? Mm-hmm.
Yes, I mean, I have been in a position which is, I would call it rather unique. I was one of the first foreigners who had the privilege to work for China state-owned enterprise and even manage operations here. So that is one thing. And the other, I had the opportunity to travel a lot in China. I have been to every single province, every place in China that is attractive, or almost every. And I actually played a tour guide to Chinese people, showing them China.
Wow. Wow, that's cool. That's great. Yeah, China also have many different kinds of food. I think it's also very attractive to many foreigners here.
Yes, I mean, I love Chinese food. Well, my most favorite food is chuan cai. So Sichuan province, Xiang cai, Dongbei cai, Xibei cai. I know in Shanghai now, and I say jokingly, I love Chinese food, but not Chinese food in Shanghai. So it's actually hard to get really authentic Sichuan and Hunan food. Dongbei is still okay. Yunnan, Yu Cai, Xianggang, and Shanghai Cai, of course. I mean, that's authentic, but the rest, I don't know, it's a bit watered down and a bit too sweet for my taste. But otherwise, yes, I love Chinese food.
Wow, I think food in Germany may be a little bit salty, and it's a different flavor, huh?
Yes, I mean, it's more salty. That's true. I mean, more peppery, lots of meat. That's sometimes it's a place where I grew up in Bavaria, Munich area. People are similar to Dongbei people and people from Northeast, and so yeah, we are often similar, and also some of the dishes are similar.
Wow! So if you go back to Germany, will you still get used to your own home food?
Well, I mean, yes, I mean, I love Bavarian food. German food is great. Here in Shanghai, we get a lot of international cuisine, which is actually very good. And so, yeah, I'm not missing it here in Shanghai.
Okay, cool. Wow. So speaking about your achievements, I'd like to ask, because you have done 260, more than 260 projects for the companies in China. So can you share a couple case examples of how your team have helped the top tier companies?
Yes, I mean, I would be happy to. I mean, first, I mean, to explain that in more detail. So, I had the insights into 260 plus projects worldwide. And that is, I have over 20 plus years of experience, and I had the privilege to work for top consultancies leading in the world, like Accenture, like Deloitte. And the way I carved out my role was always in three ways. First, I have been engaging with the client, understand their needs and develop solutions, then supporting and troubleshooting projects. And that gave me exposure to many projects simultaneously as expert, as troubleshooters, and then training people on best practices and expertise and project insights. And here I've been engaging with experts from around the world. So I was actually, when I was in Accenture and Deloitte, talking with people in, I think between 25 and 30 countries, the world's best authorities in healthcare, life science, as well as the digital transformation, talking with them through all the key projects. What are the learning lessons? How did you do it? What went wrong? What can we learn? What can we take forward? What methodologies and tools did you use? Which one did you leverage? Self-develop, how can we use it? Please send it to me. So that gives me a wealth of experience, and I did projects, it's fair to say, in every single business function. So I understand very well of how organizations and their individual function and business units work.
Yeah, from your experience, I read on LinkedIn. Wow, it's amazing. It's amazing. You learn so many things and you just like fast learner, always keep learning, and doing so many projects and you know so many languages. Wow, I think you're like amazing. Yeah, really, really amazing. So regarding your cases, do you have any case you're very impressed which can share with us?
I am happy to share a number of them. I mean, I start maybe out with Chinese people know about Huawei. Company people around the world know about Huawei. Had the privilege to be part of that success story of Huawei. I helped Huawei to become a successful global company. So in 2005, Chairman Ren had contacted British Telecom and said, look, we have been trying to get your business for many years. And British Telecom said, yes, you're not getting it because you're not good enough. You're not meeting our quality, our supply chain, etc. criteria. And then the question of Huawei was, okay, what can we do? And British Telecom said, well, we cannot give an official recommendation, but you should talk to Alex. We know Alex, he would be able to help you. And I went to Shenzhen in 2005, and I've been, over many years, I've been working with Huawei, sometimes in full-time positions or full-time project roles, sometimes as an advisor throughout the years. And the way of how we approached it, when I came to Huawei, I looked at it and said, well, they're about 10 years behind Ericsson. That was our key competitors. And we don't have the time to slowly, organically build that. So what can we do? And the approach that I chose, and I worked then with people who would provide me information, was benchmarking and competitive intelligence. So we analyzed what are the best practices of the key competitors in every single business function. How do they structure their organization? What their processes, their roles, their key skills, for every single business function. And as every organization is in some areas good and some areas not not so good. We took the world best practices of these companies from each business function and selectively put it all together. So we built a blueprint of how the world best company could look like, and then bringing it to Huawei and saying, okay, based on that, let me show you of how you could do that for each different business function. And the result was astonishing. In 18 months, we caught up by 7 years. And not only that, based on that success, British Telecom said, wow, Huawei, really impressive work. Congratulations, and now we qualify you to bid on the 21st century network contract in the UK worth £100 million. And Huawei won it. And that started the success story of Huawei in Europe.
Wow, that's impressive. Yeah, that's cool. So during the whole process, do they meet any challenge? While they execute your plans?
Well, I mean, of course, I mean, there was always the question in the room, how do you know? You are not Chinese, you don't know a Chinese company. And the way I worked with the people, I said, look, I have my opinion, you have your opinion, and all has value. But why don't we look at what is best in class, what is world leading, and then apply that? And this put us in a neutral ground where we say, okay, based on facts, not on opinions, not on agendas, not on personal preferences, we look at it soberly. And this is an approach that I have been, since then, I have been driving for until now, 2022, always. What is best practices? How do the best companies work? What can we learn from them? And then bringing it back to them and explaining them. And also a way, I mean, there was resistance where people say, so, but that is of course always a challenge. There's always a prejudges on can a foreigner understand that? But the point I was driving is like, look, you want to sell into Europe. If I want to sell into China, I should listen to Chinese people. Well, I'm European. I speak many of the key languages in Europe. I know the European culture. I bring you the best practices. Would it be at least fair to listen? And they listened, and they did a tremendous job, and very diligently, Huawei very diligently applied that. So it was a learning experience for all of us.
Wow, yeah, that's cool. So among all your experience working worldwide with China, also with China, can you tell us like some typical Chinese companies may have the problems when they are running the companies? Maybe, for example, sometimes in the leader teams, they have different ideas, right? Maybe they are too rely on the people and not updating their system, like let's say the structure, right? Yeah. Do we have some like typical problems like Chinese? I'd like to ask for our Chinese companies. Thank you.
Yes, I mean, so for example, one project that I recently worked with was a Chinese company, they Housing All-Star, and they have gone through a tremendous success story, company of maybe 1,700 people, not so large by size, but very impactful, impacting 200 through 300 clients in China and worldwide. Basically, they provide engineering, biotechnology, and pharmaceutical related services, a lot in manufacturing, a lot of in R&D, clean rooms to manufacturing facilities, through digital solutions, etc. So really exciting company, very nice people. It was a privilege to work with them. And when I was contacted by All-Star, what I typically do, I did not just like do a project. I did several projects simultaneously. So I started out with the executive team. We talked about strategy, what do we want to accomplish, and we carved out the needs of, okay, what is the strategy? How do you want to develop as a company? What is the target picture? And the target picture was, yeah, we want to become a digital company. So that, okay, so now we have a target picture. How does it, and I help to define the target picture. So how do we transform from current status in the next 3 years to the future? And here develop the roadmap. How do we get there? What are the key objectives, the key steps? What are the necessary projects to get there? What are the skill sets that we need from the people? And then of how to upskill the people. Here working with HR leadership is the executive team. The second area was with the business units, looking at them and saying, it's okay, you are providing really good engineering services. How can we digitalize that? How can we more provide, not rather products and even beyond engineering services, but turning that into digital solutions? So here working with the individual business functions, understanding the business, very complex processes, especially when you look at biotechnology, production upstream, downstream, highly challenging. Well, I have a degree in biotechnology, so that helped me. And so working with the business units, developing plans. And then also the third, meeting with their key clients, talking through potential solutions, test casing that, selling those, helping to sell projects. And fourth was then overall looking at the processes. How can we digitalize that? How can we speed it up? What is bottlenecking it? Because you ask, but it's a typical problem with Chinese organizations is they have grown very fast. And typically the structures are all over the place. It looks like a spaghetti ball oftentimes, with the departments are not really clearly defined, or they have overlapping roles, or sometimes it's more informally they communicate than formally. So structures are not very clear, and sometimes KPIs are not aligned, so helped on that. And the fifth area was then looking at their digital platform, because we said, okay, I mean, in order to support that, we need a digital platform. What are the requirements? And I helped them scope out their requirements, and also gave indications of how to engage with potential solution providers and help them think through the different scenarios in terms of what should they do themselves, where should they bring in a partner, what should be the criteria for selecting the partner, and ultimately what would be the roadmap of developing that digital transformation platform.
Wow. Yeah. You reminded me, we also, when we do English trainings for other companies, we also have clients, they have similar problems. Like they have a team with a team have some communication problem, and they all don't understand each other, and they don't want to compromise, and then they can hardly to reach their goal. And some companies, they needed to make a good revenue, and they always have different kinds of problems, and then stuck there. I think many of the companies really need your service to help them to make everything clear and to make a good service for the clients. Thank you.
Yes. And I mean, the different differentiator in digital transformation is why most digital transformation projects fail is people typically have a very specific role and a specific experience, but this is just a very small, this area, and very few people have really this end-to-end experience. What helps me is working on 260 plus projects across every business function. That helps me to really understand what are the key points, what are the problems. And it's always like you have to bring together several areas. It's not just technology. It's not just processes. It's not just people. It's not just data. It's not just like customer understanding. It's everything together. And this is where most companies fail, because they think, well, I mean, just put 5 of these 5 functions in a room and they will figure it out. No, because there needs to be a facilitator. There needs to be someone who has this big picture, this end-to-end understanding, who holds these people accountable. Because otherwise, you soon have constant fightings. One department says, "Well, I cannot do that. That's impossible." If you don't have a person, for example, like me, who is challenging them and said, "No, you say this is impossible. Let me show you how." And well, that's your opinion. Well, let me show you a case study. Let me show you of how we done it. Oh, okay. And then the other person says, "Well, unless I have this, I can't do that." Now hold it. No, you can actually do it if you do it differently. Let me show you how. And so it becomes a facilitator role, a guided role, not doing it all by myself, obviously not, but fully working together with the experts and with the different departments across the organization. And that brings a solution that actually then makes it sustainable and you can really progress in your digital transformation journey.
Yeah. And then for some basic employees, they are reluctant to change. So they will try their best to read against the system because they don't want to do too much work and they are reluctant to change it.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I mean, oftentimes, I mean, there are different theories out. Are people lazy and don't want to work and are selfish, or other people who really want to make add value and think for the company? I think, I mean, it really depends on the situation. Sometimes it's the organization's fault. I give you an example. Oftentimes, when I go into an organization, there's resistance. And I agree with the people. If I were them, I would also resist. Why? Because the KPIs, the targets are not aligned. So, for example, you have a manager, intelligent automation project. You have a manager who worked 7 years to get his promotion because only if he leads 500 people, he can become a senior manager. Now you come and you say, well, I mean, I automate processes and we actually will take 200 people away from it because we will actually achieve productivity gains, so we can do it with 300 people. He will fight until death against that program. Why? Because it will hurt him. So that is where people like myself need to come in and need to talk with leadership and say, look, guys, that definition of you need 500 people to become a senior manager is not longer valid. So take that out. Rewrite other KPIs. So, for example, we achieve a certain, we can handle so many throughputs in a given month. You measure the senior manager that is fair, and then the senior manager will support you. So, a lot of resistance is oftentimes very valid reasons. The companies better need to understand through the targets, through the KPIs, etc. And then, of course, there is this other component. I work a lot with NLP and emotional intelligence and transaction analysis, power thinking to help people to achieve their full potential. And by nature, we are all of that. We resist change. We are used to do certain things. I mean, just imagine you are always using your right hand to operate your mouse. And suddenly a person comes along from now on, you lose left hand. You don't want to do that. And there is no right and wrong. You can use the left hand or the right hand. But okay, what does it mean? Certain change makes sense. Certain change doesn't make sense. And sometimes there's a lack of information, education, ability to think, fears, all justified. That's where I typically come in and work on the people side. And I sit down with them and say, look, guys, I don't have an invested interest here. I just want to help. And the way I have approached changes, sometimes it scares me. Sometimes I don't want to change. But certain change is really helpful because if we are not changing, not improving, we are not only not progressing, we are falling behind because change is a constant. So, and that helps them on an individual level. I mean, I have a lot of individual conversations then with the people and sit down and say, look, what's the real issue? I mean, people give all kinds of reasons why they can't do it. And many sound logic. And if managers oftentimes are not so experienced to really look behind and says, no, that's not the issue. The underlying issue may be he is fearing for his job, his KPIs are not allowed, or people will see, I mean, that actually that person has done things in a very inefficient way, or it could be done in a much better way. And the person probably knows already that for the last years, but why raise the arm and risk his job? I mean, this is constant fear. So here again, working with senior management, with leadership, and saying, look, can we actually reward people to lift their hand and say, hey, we can improve that?
Yeah.
So I have a case study actually when I worked for Accenture. And this was a tremendous achievement in the industry, made headlines. When we were in Accenture, we achieved productivity gains of 30,000 people through automation every year. This was unheard of. And by the way, we didn't fire any person. We achieved 30,000 productivity gains. So we got the work done for as if we had employed 30,000 people more. But we didn't hire more people, and we didn't get rid of people. So how did we do it? We actually grew the value of the company and the value for our customers by eliminating the unnecessary work, then automating the routine work, and then keeping the rest with the people, and supporting these people even with advanced technologies like AI, advanced analytics, BI, etc., to make better decisions, to add more value to customers, etc., to serve the customers better. And the result was astonishing. So as I said, not only 30,000 full-time employee productivity gains, which is a massive cost saving, but we increased even the satisfaction of the people. So people turnover rate, we brought it down to the lowest in the industry. Why? Because people said, hey, our jobs are really interesting. Before I hated it. It was boring, a lot of routine work. That was an insult to my intelligence. Now, they just focus on exciting, interesting work supported by advanced technologies. And yeah, it was a great success story.
Wow, I can't imagine so many people, so hard to turn around their to accept these new ideas. Normally, it's just so hard. I saw some people, we have clients, they ask for project management, and even just two small departments, and it's so hard for them to change. It's like you said, normally it's use the right hand, and one day you ask them to use the left. No, it's impossible. They just instinctively want to reject it and fight very hard. Wow. So I can imagine that in the very beginning, when you guys when your team tried to turn it around, it must be faced a lot of obstacles. You must make them believe that we will together to united to overcome all these problems. Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, as you mentioned, also the companies also have easily have the similar problems. Like when the leaders, they are making some, how to say, the structure and system is so controversy, and they didn't really check it. So which the problems comes out. It seems the CEO manager can never achieve the goal because it hurt his own position. So sometimes we don't realize that. We just think we shall give good prediction for them to make them to try their best. But we can very easily to ignore it. It's just it's so hard to be the CEO because they have to know everything. So I think they really need your service, your team, to get into their business to find the problems. Maybe when you do this and you find that they also have other problems, then you help them to resolve all the problems together and then run very efficiently. Wow.
Yes. And the thing is, after 20 plus years of working and helping companies, what I found is fixed contracts don't make sense. That's a strong statement, because typically consulting companies are in and say, we do this for this price and that time. And what I'm saying is, this is very immature. What do I mean by that? It is impossible to go into an organization without having it analyzed in detail to say, this is what I can give you at that time, and for that price. So the way I do it is, and I develop my own model. I come in as an expert and I give time for money. So I may give them 2 to 5 days per week over a period of 3 to 9 months. And then I work on several projects simultaneously. And I'm flexible enough that, for example, the CEO comes in and says, Alex, I have a board presentation tomorrow. Can you please work on it? Well, my first thing, I will smile and say, why didn't you tell me earlier? But okay, I stop what I'm doing now and I work on this. And later on, maybe as a key customer, I'm in a project and I'm working on a transformation. Can you please work with this client? Yes, we prepare the presentation. So I'm constantly switching according to the business needs, customer needs, leadership needs. That's one. And the second is as opportunities arise. And the third is then also, what are the real needs? Every single company is different. And this is where the typical consulting approach fails. Now, I give you an example of that. So I was in a situation where they brought me as an expert to troubleshoot. It was a big four company out of courtesy and protecting their name now. So they had a serious problem. And basically, they were tasked by the executive team of this large pharmaceutical company to identify 20 processes for automation. And the project went completely haywire, completely wrong, nothing worked, and it really upsets the client relationship. So actually that big four company, that consulting company, lost major contracts because of it. So everyone was upset, and they said, okay, what do we do? So I was brought in as an expert to solve the issue, and I noticed that 19 out of the 20 recommended processes for automation were selected wrong. 19 out of 20. So how can you be so wrong? And the situation was that this big four company, very smart people, I've worked with that company before, on joint projects where they were involved, very smart people, they made one major mistake. They used the deductive methods. I said, well, basically based on generalization, what companies, pharmaceutical companies typically need in their automation journey, these would be the processes, and then they recommend it. And that's the wrong approach. This is a very superficial, often mistaken approach. So basically, you have to analyze the situation of the client. So I went in and analyzed, and why is it so different? The problem is that when you go into automating processes, for example, through AI, through RPA, through advanced analytics, etc., systems, every client situation is different. Every organization is different. So you may have the same process with the same name in the same country, in the same industry, same size of the company, and one process you can automate in company A, you can automate by 87%, and the other one only by 13. 87% compared to 13. How? Why? Because completely different people involved, different roles, different structures, different processes, and already other systems in place, and also firewalls, IT limitations, people's ability to take on technologies, etc. So we turned that project around very successfully, but it was also, again, an example of high-level consulting work often leads to wrong advice and strong difficulties in implementation.
Yeah, yeah. Different cases then. So it's also very check the real things from the consultant. If we know, like if you know their problems clearly, then you can solve it. But if you couldn't find the real problems, then you cannot just use the templates from any company to do the same thing. Doesn't work.
Yeah, it is like a doctor. I mean, I come out of a family of doctors and scientists who have sacrificed their life to serve other people. And it's like if the doctor doesn't have the ability to make spend enough time to do an analysis and diagnose the real issues. I mean, what is he operating on? What is he advising? And I think, I mean, one thing is many consultants don't have enough experience to advise, but also we have clients who are sometimes just immaturely demanding things that are not possible. And then they go for certain solutions that sounds to be cheap, but it doesn't help them. You can get bad advice cheap, or you can get good advice for good money. I mean, what do you want? And this is the unfortunate thing, that there are many consulting companies that feel pressured to offer at a low rate in order to win the project, but this is the result, and that the client gets. That upsets them. They are not happy with the result, and gives the consulting industry a bad name. Consulting is a very valuable proposition, but it must be from good people, experienced people. Otherwise, it just hurts the entire industry.
Right. Wasted time and energy, and very bad for the company. Yeah. Speaking about your personal mission, is to positively impact the lives of 700 million people. Can you elaborate more on this?
Yes, and first of all, about how the 700 million people, is that just a number that I thought up? It is actually a realistic number, and I calculated it by, if I work with pharmaceutical companies, for example, pharmaceutical companies that develop new drugs, and if we bring a drug to market 1 month earlier, we can save human lives. If we produce a new winning drugs, helpful drugs, we can reduce the suffering of potentially millions of people. But then when we go into the prevention, and actually then it becomes quite easy, because I give you an example which is startling. I mean, numbers. 50% of all medications that are sold are totally wasted. What do I mean by that? So what few people know is you have to take a medication when your body metabolizes the medication, and that is different to each person. Now, when has your doctor told you when you should take your medication? That typically says, well, take it twice a week, twice a day, but that's wrong. So basically, to speak it very nastily, graphically, but to help people remember what I'm saying, is they basically take the medication and pee the medication back into the toilet without use. It has no effect on their bodies. That's the first thing. Then 80% of all health is related on very basic things. It is sleep, it is proper nutrition, it is fitness, and mental well-being, and others. But here, this has a big impact on people. Now, it sounds so basic that why even talk about it? Yeah, because it's healthy. Because rather than eating nutritious food, they overeat, and then they have high cholesterol, they develop diabetes, then they need to take medication. and it is destroying the body. I mean, medication is good if it's taken well, but I mean, many people are more poisoning their bodies and taking medications unnecessarily, and that creates all havoc. I mean, statistics and just I mean from the US, 5% of the population in the US causes more than 50% of all healthcare costs. These are people who are very unhealthy lifestyles. Now, some are unfortunate, born with a very bad health, but many people are just not self-disciplining themselves. They lack the information, and it starts with right thinking as well. So here I'm working with the people through seminars to help them how to think right, how to use your mind. And health starts with the thinking process. You can think yourself sick, literally sick. And I prove that to you. I mean, just like by very simple examples. You have, for example, I think I want to take my pen. Okay, I take my pen. So I'm thinking in my brain, and it sends signals to my muscles in my hand, my arm, and I grab it and I have it, right? So who picked up the pen? The muscle, yeah, but who triggered it? The thought. So basically, it has a physical effect. And when we think, in order to process signals, we produce biochemicals in our body, and these biochemicals, they can, like poison, hurt our body. So we can literally destroy our own bodies through our thinking. So people who get depressed, who think negatively, they think literally think themselves sick. And here, helping people by thinking in a better, more positive way. It sounds simple, but it has a massive effect on not only the health, but also quality of life. And it also has impact on relationships, because if you have a mother who has constantly negative thinking, she will not be the best spouse, wife. She will not be the best mother. It will affect so many different people. It may make her co-worker's life miserable, or neighbors, friends, whatever. So it has all an impact. And so I'm dealing on several fronts. So first of all, digital transformation guidance of helping companies to produce faster, better drugs. Secondly, to diagnose better disease stages, and then working on the therapies. So these three things in terms of process improvements, faster throughput, develop better drugs, better diagnostic, etc. So that is one area. But the other area where I work a lot in prevention and saying we need to think right. And there I'm coming in through linguistic programming, NLP, through emotional intelligence, through power thinking, as well as transaction analysis, as well as others, methods to help people think better, reach more their full potential, live healthier, live longer, and have a better quality life.
Yeah. Thank you. I see that you have done a lot to help us. I also check that you have a video to tell us how we can keep good, peaceful mind during this pandemic. We can also check out from your channel and YouTube. These are really, really helpful. Thank you very much. So what brings you in the very beginning, drives you into life science and healthcare? In the very beginning, do you have any story to share with us?
Yeah, I mean, what got me into it, I mean, it started from childhood. I mean, it's like if you have family members who literally sacrifice their lives to help other people, it has certainly an impact. And I have family members and myself. I mean, we have been working on many humanitarian projects throughout the world. I have been in war zones. I have been dealing with orphans. I have been with people struggling with alcoholism, with poverty, with drugs, with mental issues, etc. and working with all kinds of people groups. And, it becomes a lifestyle. And my personal life mission is, what I'm saying is, a life worth living, a life that is meaningful, a life that is truly successful. It's not about how much money you earn, but how much you have impact, positive impact on people. And
Yeah.
and this has been a challenge throughout the years, because I have friends who have become, through their hard work, extremely wealthy. And uh, for me, it was not as appealing to drive a Ferrari or a Lamborghini. I believe these are beautiful cars, but I rather would have spent it on an orphanage, creating an orphanage and helping children there, and having an positive impact on their lives. And it is also a choice, which is in a sense a sacrifice. I mean, while my friends, live in very big houses and have a fabulous lifestyle, in between, sometimes I have taken out time, several months, and not taking on a lucrative projects, but went to a developing country, working with poor people. I didn't earn any money throughout this time. It didn't necessarily build my power resume to take on an executive position. And I even spent money because I was helping people. So spending my own money to get there, and investing money then in these places. So most of my savings I have immediately, or the money I earned very well, but I always put it then back into helping people. And this is where people, I've relatives who sometimes just ridicule me for that and say, Alex, you're stupid, why are you doing that? Why don't you think more about yourself? But this is a lifestyle choice, and it comes also, serving people comes with a sacrifice.
You're such a great person. You really try to help people around you, not just around you, all the world. Wow! I saw that from your video. You also you mentioned that you did a lot of charity. I think these things are really, really good, because like I saw some rich people around me. I saw they are miserable. They treat the money very intense, and they just buy luxury cars or big house, but they don't have love to people. So they don't they don't have the spirit. And I really, really think people like you really helped a lot. This is the big love to all the people in the world, and can help more and more. It will influence those people you helped to help the others make the world better and better. So I think it's really, really great. I hope I can do that in the future too. Do more to influence more people. Thank you so much. You're really a great person.
Yeah, I mean, a thought on that. I mean, we are all victims and perpetrators in our lives. We have positive and negative impact, and sometimes we're suffering harm from other people that give us. But I would say a lot has to do with mindset and information. So, for example, when I grew up, I was very much influenced by Hollywood movies, where we saw a leader needs to be tough, he needs to be loud, he needs to be aggressive, he needs to talk down on people, and it's all a lie. It's all a lie. Now, some people are successful for a short period of time, but what I'm saying is, doing bad things, harming others, taking advantage of others, always long term leads to a fall, leads to negative consequences. And I've seen a lot of so-called successful leaders, successful consultants, who their lifestyles were not matching, who violated key sustainable principles, and they all fell. And sometimes it was astonishing how fast they fell. They went up very fast, and then, boom, they were gone. And you have seen also that in China, some people disappeared, some people very successful, and then they are in jail. Or so that is, I mean, a still warning. I mean, there is a reason why we need to apply sustainable principles. And also a good word on that. The CEOs that I had the privilege to work with, or executives who are really successful long term, and this is also a message for young people, they are always having good values, good characters, and they are not aggressive, they are humble, because a wise person understands there's so much knowledge out there, and the more you learn, you recognize how little you know, and that keeps you humble. I mean, when I started out my career, I was perhaps, you would say, in the first years a bit arrogant. And I did work on very, very famous projects. And now it's like, no, now we all learn from each other. Nobody can know everything. We need to work together. And only when we work together, put our minds together, we can really have the maximum outcome. And this keeps a person humble. It's like constantly learning. And I would say only a humble person can learn. And here also a positive thing, what I liked about the Chinese people, what I love about the Chinese people, they are very willing to learn. So I give you the example. When I went to Russia, I went on a humanitarian project and I taught Russian people. And the Russian people are very special. I love them, but they are very hard-headed. It is difficult to teach them. They were always like, who are you? Why are you teaching? And prove it to me. And now it can't work. And I give you 5, 10 reasons why it doesn't work. A typical Chinese person, very different. They're like, oh, teach me more. Teach me more. I don't know that. What is this? How can you do it? Again, yes, that's good. Teach me more. 老师, 师傅, 你教我吧. And so this is the big difference. And that's what I told to my Russian friends. I said, look, guys, the reason why China has improved so much is because they are very hardworking, very learning, and in the earlier years they were humble. My concerns for China now is typical human nature. Now we see people become more self-confident, sometimes even a bit arrogant. Who are you? How can you teach me? I'm Chinese. I'm the smartest. But in the earlier years, what I loved in China was the willingness to be humble, to learn. And I think this is a key to succeed. So this is my suggestion for any person who wants to have an impact in the world or be successful. Say Hollywood movies are just garbage. Don't watch them use them as an entertainment, action movie, whatever. But don't use them as a instruction to show you what is a successful leader like. Because most of these movie script writers are the poorest people in the industry. They hardly can make a living. So, but in their little mind, small mind of how the world they think works, which doesn't work for them, they think a leader has to be arrogant and tough and nasty. No. A real leader is investing himself in other people, cares for people, serves people, and has a positive impact on the world.
Another way is also a process. I think sometimes, like me in the very beginning, when I make some money, I started to spend money on beautiful clothes, luxury bags, like girls. Everybody around you seems like they will give you like a respect looking, so-called. So you are easily get into the ring and you feel like great. So I think it's also like a little trap. But after, like you said, the more you learn, you will find how little you know. So I guess it's just a process. People still in that process is to experience something to make them change. Yeah, it's maybe more time.
And you already see that here in cities like China and in China, Shanghai, Beijing. People are very disillusioned about their wealth. And this is what I predicted in 2002. When in 2002 I came, and it was a very different China, right? I mean, people were on bicycles, and there were few cars on the road, and there was a lot of pollution, and it was gray and dark, and people had little money. And I said to them, look, guys, there will come a time where people will have a house, maybe two houses. They will have two cars. They will have two children. They will have a dog and a cat, and maybe a mistress on the side or a second mistress on the side, but they will not be happy. And they were laughing at me. And they said, Alex, you have no clue. And I said, well, okay, and I give you even that one. And one day will come where Chinese people do not want to have children. And they were like, what? How do you don't know anything? Oh, I wouldn't. Now, what's the situation now? You have a lot of delusioned people in China. They have a lot of wealth, but they don't have a meaning in life. And they are searching now. You already see a lot of young people who go into smaller cities and say, I don't want to keep up with that peer pressure, with that struggle with these expenses constantly. I mean, you buy a home and you basically become a slave to a bank for 30 years. So that is it is a challenge. I mean, one of the very sad things is we have a very high rate of suicide right now in Shanghai and Beijing. People don't know what they're living for. And this is why I always say sustainable living, it does not only include material things, but it includes relationship with people. And if you want to believe in God, with a relationship with God. And only then life makes sense, because if you only measure your value as a human being by what you own, if you lose your materials, you're worth nothing according to your own definition. Now, I don't believe that. I believe every person has a unique, special value. But if you define yourself just by the materials you have and by the admiration of your friends, so-called friends, then your life is very dangerous, because you may lose that, and then what are you worth? And then how do you continue living?
Yeah, that's very narrow. I think people can do many things to help others. Like you, I earned very well. I earned a lot, but I spread my love to the others to help them to be better, to help them to grow. I think this is very meaningful. It's not like because I don't have enough very good fortune that I'm not a good person or I'm not a valuable person. Yeah, I think this is not quite a good right definition. I don't agree.
Yeah, I mean, look at Chinese important figures like Zhou Enlai. Zhou Enlai, he was a servant leader. He was a servant to the people, and this is why the Chinese people loved him so much. And I'm also very impressed by him. Or Sun Zhongshan, who had a remarkable life, who he actually we talked about sustainable principles. I mean, my recommendation is the same that Sun Zhongshan said. He said every Chinese person should read one book. He was reading one book every single day. What is that one book? Do you know? Sun Zhongshan.
Which one? Mm-hmm.
He was reading every day the Bible and applied biblical principles to his life and the way he served people. And I give you an example. I mean, I was working on a project that was a very demanding project in the southern part of China. For out of protection of the company, I don't give the name, but here I applied the Bible, the book, as sustainable principles to transform the organization. A situation was, so that is a case study that became very famous in the industry. So a situation was in this company of 17,000 people had done something very wrong to their workers. They treated workers, their safety, their health, their working conditions. And the result was that the major brand companies around the world, they were pulling the products off the shelves. It was a citation in the US Congress. This company was cited as one of the worst cases and bad examples of how manufacturers in China abuse their workforce. And the situation was so bad that the company was facing bankruptcy because the 60-70% of all the orders were canceled. You can imagine what happened. So I was sent on behalf of one of the key clients who said, Alex, investigate the situation. So I was sent to that company. And within 1 week, I noticed that the situation was even much worse than feared. So basically, the company ended. But I was asked to say if I could save the company. So leadership asked me, pleaded, and said, Alex, can you help us? And I said, well, I see 17,000 jobs here on the line. Yes. So I worked with leadership on it. And within 2 weeks, I presented a program, a plan to the clients around the world who were buying from this company, and said, here, this is a plan of how I intend to solve that. As I said, Alex, we don't give this company a chance anymore. We don't believe them. They lied to us. They deceived us. But we give you a chance. If you speak up for them, we give you a chance. And so within 6 months, we turned the company around. I was later on heralded as the sustainability expert in the industry. How did I do that? You know what? I applied the principles of the Bible. I applied the principles of the Bible.
You use the Bible to ask them to follow
I used the Bible. I used the biblical principles of the Bible, and we did management training, leadership training according to the Bible. And
wow, that's amazing.
When I came to the company, the managers called the workers dogs, literally dogs. When I left the company 6 months later, they called them our children. Totally transformation of mind. And the success story was that not only we fixed the workers' issues, etc. While we were fixing these issues and transformed the culture, we lowered the per piece costs by 50%. So we changed production lines. We threw out traditional methods. And as we had more buy-in from the workers, we achieved a much better outcome. So while we spent money, or they spent money on me to do this program, they actually achieved a much better business performance. And there I noticed is that sustainable principles are very important. And the best book on sustainable principles, sustainable leadership and management, is the Bible. I don't know any other book that is that great. And in fact, most of the textbooks, business textbooks, always quote Bible. There's a reason for it. So there I was really impressed by how well these principles work in companies. Leadership transformation, people transformation. So it was an amazing project.
Wow, yeah. If you issue stock, then I will immediately buy. I think you are a great consultant, and you know all the problem, and you can help them to change, and people trust you because you have a great reputation. I think this is all comes from your hard working and your smart, diligent work, and among so many years. Wow, that's really impressive. That's cool. I'm very impressed by your 16 success principles you also mentioned in your channel and YouTube. I learned a lot from them. And I also found some of them a little bit similar, like from Ray Daniel and Elon Musk.
Okay.
How do you define success, and what makes a successful person?
Success, is very subjective because each person has different goals, and a good definition is, I think, is like if you achieve your goals. Because if you achieve somebody else's goals and these are not your goals, are you truly successful? Maybe yes, maybe no. So it must be your own goals, and that requires that you set goals and objectives for your lives in the first place. That's one criteria. Another one is, are these goals aligned with your talents? If you, I strongly believe that each person is created with a unique set of talents. Unfortunately, most people don't know what these talents truly are. We don't really spend time to discover it. Many are unused, and only in extreme situations so we do a great job, or we prove ourselves and say, wow, I'm actually good at it. And so it has to leverage our talents. Say, for example, if you can teach a dog to swim in the water but the dog will never be a fish, never be fully comfortable. Dog wants to be dog. Dog should be dog. And if the dog just has to live in the water, it's difficult and struggling and hard. So what are your talents? It has to be in line with talents. And the third criteria I would say is it has to have a meaning. It has to have an impact, a positive impact on people. And this is why you see people who are tremendously wealthy but not happy. And I mean, look at this. I mean, how many meals per day can you eat? How many cars can you drive? I mean, you can drive one car at a time. And how many wives can you have? Normally, one. And that wife gets older. So what do? So you cheat on your wife, or you divorce your wife and get a younger wife. But the point is, what I'm saying is, this cannot be the definition of your success because it's temporary. Or I know numerous people very successful in business, but they don't have a relationship with their children. The children don't even have to do anything with them anymore. Are they successful? So it has to do also in the concept of relationships. How successful are you in your relationships? Doesn't mean you need to get along with everyone. We are all different, but in your close relationships, do you have healthy relationships? And helping people like that. And the other point is also, it's like, where's your life going? And this is more like a question where you need to, a spiritual question, but also worth thinking. People say, well, why spiritual? I mean, aren't we just a body? And I say, no, we are not just a body. And a lot of research, even from a psychological perspective or scientific perspective, we always talk about, we started out with human intelligence, brain intelligence, and we said emotional intelligence. And there's also something what we call spiritual intelligence. There's more to the body than spirit. I mean, Einstein proved it. There are more than 3 dimensions. And so humans have a spirit, but okay, if you have a spirit and that spirit continues not only beyond the lifetime of our body, what happens with the spirit then? What is our destiny? So worst case, assume there is a hell and a heaven, and you go to hell where you were really successful in your life. Not necessarily. The rest of your life, the rest of your eternity you spend in hell, you were not very successful. So that is at least something to contemplate. Are you willing to do that? And I think there are numerous examples where we often see a spirit in action. I mean, it's like we can sense certain things. There's no explanation in it. Why? For example, you walk in the street and somebody looks at you. You feel the looks. And you turn around, somebody's looking at me. Give me a physical explanation for that. There isn't. Their physics cannot explain it, but there are certain dimensions where on a spiritual level, people can collect. Why do you like certain people and certain people not? Why do you have a feeling this person is lying to me? Yes, you can read the body language, but sometimes it's just intuition. Where does the intuition come from? So that is also something to consider. And I believe if a person is just body, human flesh, then that is not achieving a full quality life. And this person, if he or she limits herself just to the body, then this person I would suggest cannot be fully successful, because it limits herself to just the body.
Wow. Yeah. You mentioned, like, one of my friends, he's a lawyer, and he said that he tackled some cases like many young people, and they were drinking, but they were very, very rich, and they were drinking all night in the bar, and running. So they're riding own very luxury cars, but they are just bad temper, and they feel so bored, and they don't have a goal in their life. So even though they have tons of money, but they just don't feel fulfilled for their lives. Yeah. So mention me about that. I like your different characters about the successful definition. Those are really respectful and good. And I hope that I can be the same person. I'm trying my best to influence people around us. You also mentioned about the mistakes and failures. And most people try our best to avoid the mistakes, especially Chinese. We love our 面子 to protect our face. I think we don't want to talk about the mistakes we made. So how do you handle mistakes and failures? Well, what do you think about them?
There is a thinking to it. It sounds superficial, but there is not such as a failure if you learn from it, and everything can be a positive experience. And there is some value to it. What do I mean by that? It's like, for example, I'm a certified Scrum Master, Agile Technologies. One of the principles is fail fast. You purposely push yourself even beyond the norm to constantly strive to become better. You have to experiment, you have to check on things. And in this case, failing fast is not failure. It's like what the success of the internet companies in China, for example. Why was it so successful? Because they constantly push it. They try, it works now, okay, modify, it works now, we'll modify again until you get it right. And as everything is evolving, customers' needs, etc., you're constantly with the flow and trying to improve and trying to adapt. And I think this is the right way. And the biggest mistake, the saddest thing, the biggest failure, true failure, is if a person doesn't use her full potential, and always trying to avoid risks. And that is the biggest thing. A person who doesn't want to fail is fearful. A person in extreme case is a coward. A person who loves face, mianzi, is not a confident person. And so losing face, what does it mean? It is like, yeah, it's maybe even good, because you may have not the right face. You lose it like a mask. It's like, no, this is not right. Oh, I lose it. Very good. I lost it. I learned something. And so this is part of learning, a constant recognition. We have to accept that our mind, that we as humans are very fragile and we can't get it right. And it also good because it forces us to work in terms of relationships together with other people. We have to team up. Otherwise, I mean, if we were perfect, and would not fail, we wouldn't have a need to really be together. So why engage? Do it all ourselves. So it would be possibly quite lonely. So that's the first part. And of course, some mistakes, certain things are mistakes. For example, a person cheats on his wife is a mistake, a serious mistake, and it has very negative impact on the entire relationship, on the children, etc. This is a very bad mistake. So certain things are bad. You mentioned one of these rich children who drive a big car and drunk and kill a person. That's a horrific mistake. And certain things are difficult to mend. But the thing I want to say is, as long as you live, you got a chance to make things better. As long as you breathe, you still have a chance. So it's not over for you. You still have a chance. You may mess have up big time. You have done maybe horrific things, but you're still alive. You're still breathing. You can still make a difference. So that's a positive thing. And one thing is also, and I give you an example in terms of learning. There are certain, when you learn languages, you have to constantly make mistakes. You constantly talk. The more you talk, the more mistakes you make. And there were two people, an American and a British. They were in Spain. And one American was always making fun of the British person. Both were trying to speak Spanish, of how many mistakes he made. And the English, he didn't care. He spoke. But over time, his Spanish got really good. The American never really improved because he never really said anything, because he was afraid of speaking and being laughed at. But I mean, nobody really laughed at. I mean, in the end, he was not making progress. And the English, who was the victim of scorn and ridicule of that American, I mean, he spoke fluent Spanish in the end. So who's the winner in the end? So we all make mistakes, we all learn, and I think this is why we all need to be humble. And a good thing is, when we make mistakes, it's, hey, I'm sorry. That's a very important word. I'm sorry. Help me to do it right. I mean, help me learn, teach me. What can I do it better? How can I do it better? How do best people or best company do it? That has been my approach. Always looking like, who is an expert in the field? Who can I talk to? Who are other world-leading companies? What can we learn from them? And always with a caveat, they are not perfect, but what can we learn from them? And then applying these principles and learning.
Yeah, I quite agree with that. I think, from another way, we should say failure is just a temporary new start. Just keep making mistakes, and then once you always make a conclusion about your mistakes, you always improving. Then you can achieve your goal. Only when you give up and you say, I cannot do it, or you from your heart you like give up, then we can say, oh, by then maybe it's
yes. The point I also want to make is, some of your goals may be wrong. Yeah. So you need to have, it's like a double loop in your process. It's not just like do it until you get it right, but always verify, is what you're doing really the right thing? And this is a learning experience. A person may set himself a certain goal and then find out that, no, that's actually not the right goal. I was immature. Certain goals I set in my life were not the right thing. I was like, I'm laughing now, but I mean, yeah, I come up with certain goals. It's like, no, I wouldn't say that is a good goal. And I learned over time, but I mean, this is a learning process. We grow in character, we grow in our vision, we grow in our understanding, and suddenly certain goals are not important. So it's not about foolishly following a goal until self-destruction only to achieve the goal. If the goal was not right, you shouldn't do that. So verify always your goals. Is that the feedback? So your example, you have a girl who wants to become a singer, but she always gets the feedback, no, she is not a good singer. She doesn't have the voice. After some period of reflection, she may have to take the input and say, well, I may use other skills. What are my other skills? I possibly are not an opera star. Okay. I mean, for example, I played soccer in football in Germany. When I was 16, we were getting up to the highest league, playing against Bayern Munich. We were a village team. None of us, I would say, in our team had the capabilities to play professional soccer, become a professional. But we were very harmonying very well as a team, and we were beating really good teams. And I had to make a decision. Do I want to become a professional football player? And my analysis at that time was, no, I'm not running fast enough. And I don't have the body coordination that professional footballers have. And so at the age of 17, to the surprise of everyone, I said, hey guys, I'm done with football. I still like watching it, but I didn't train 4 or 5 times a week anymore. I did other things. So I worked as a journalist instead. And I covered sports, which I really liked as a high school student. So, but this is look, the biggest failure in life is not really trying, not leveraging your balance, and or having goals which are wrong or which are not really adding value to society and to people.
That's a really good one. I think it's very typical for young people. They even like me, I changed my jobs and after 5 years of hotel, and I found I'm really like English, so I joined the English training company. Then I joined the insurance, and then after 2 years, I'm like, I still feel like I want something new. So always verify. I think this is a great new principle. Always verify your goals and adjust it when you, because when we always update the new direction, and we can easily check, and we can easily find the new way which we are good at, and then we can do better in a new way, and then can achieve better of ourselves and influence people around us. I think, yeah, this is a good one. Thank you. Very typical. And you also said never stop learning. And you yourself, while you learned 3 master degrees, and you always keep learning, and you learned it so hard. And so I want to know, how do you learn every day? Can you give us some suggestions?
Well, I mean, in terms of degrees, so I have my MBA with double major, finance, direct marketing. I worked on numerous degrees from IT, biotechnology, telecommunications, etc. And I've done a constant learning, basically every day. I mean, 2 to several hours. I read best practices, best projects, talk to people, engage with people. So I'm constantly learning. And this is how I can bring the best value to any client, because if my advantage is I walk into a client situation and I've either personally seen it several times, or I have discussed in detail this project with another expert. So this situation. So that's why I have solutions, and I can come up with solutions much faster. And I can also give the reasons why, when client says scenario A, B, or C, that may not be applicable, not because of personal opinion. I can give all the underlying reasons, and that helps. So reading to me, or learning on and engaging with experts is tremendously important for me. So a day I'm not learning is a day wasted for me.
Wow, a day not learning is a day wasted for you. So we have to keep learning, and then we can influence people better, because we know what is wrong underneath. Then we can solve people's problems. That's really, really, really good. Thank you. You inspired me a lot, and I believe that another people who will watch this video will also learn a lot from you. This is really inspiring. Thank you. And do you have any good books can introduce to us for people like me who is very interested in business, like CEOs could read, or also as well as younger people?
You know, there are many books out there, and I think when we select books, it's also always helpful to look at certain criteria. And some people will say, well, Alex, I have different criteria, and that's fine. So I give you mine. First, there must be a practical experience. What I'm very cautious about are people who are in some academic field, and they have never left the library, and then they write a book of how things should be. And I'm cautious on that. Sometimes these books are very good, but sometimes you say, well, this person has never proven himself, herself in such a setting. Why? To what extent can I believe that? So that's the first criteria. A second criteria is it needs to be built on solid principles. These numbers need to be ethical, of course, legal. There's no doubt about that, but ethical. And what I'm looking for is, does a person really relate to people and has a heart for people? If a person doesn't like people, I don't know. I'm not sure. Do I want to copy that person? Do I want to? So that helps to put it into a relationship. What I see as some of the most impactful people in my life were people who had solid principles. I mean, as I said, for example, Zhou Enlai, but also Sun Zhongshan in China. Watchman Nee, he is more on the spiritual side. These would be recommendations. John Maxwell on leadership. John Maxwell also very based on solid principle, has talked all over the world to statesmen, etc. And my strong belief is get the spiritual human side, sustainable values right. If I had one book to recommend, if I had one book to recommend, it would be the Holy Bible. That is the most published book in the world, and for a reason. It has impact on hundreds of thousands of business books and management leadership books. So why not go? Well, you can read all these individual books and get principles, or you can get to the source. So that would be my recommendation. Is start there. I would start in the New Testament of the Bible. I would go into there's a book called Gospel of John. Read that, 21 chapters. You read that in a few hours. It may give you a new perspective on life. And a key principles where I summarize it: do as you would like your neighbor, the other person, do unto you. And a great role model to the leadership community. We always talk about, nowadays we talk about servant leadership. It's like, how do you become a servant leader, a real leader? A servant leader is a leader is a servant leader. To be very effective, there's one role model as a servant leader, Jesus Christ. So if you want to have a role model there, read the Bible, study the life of Jesus Christ. Many of the key leadership gurus have actually studied his life extensively, the principles, and they are very powerful, especially in situations. So, as I said, key projects that I've done, I was considered a sustainability expert, and I basically was just quoting Bible to them and applying biblical principles. So you can get a shortcut.
Good work.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you. I must read it before I go to sleep every day. I have a new goal now. That's cool. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I have a hard stop now. I need to go. I already should have gone 10 minutes ago. Any final thoughts, questions you may have?
Yeah, I think we have done a lot, and they are really good. And I'd like to ask one last question. Like you shared the videos talking about Ukraine war, and your focus is healthcare, is related with the pandemic. I think it's hard for people with a bigger heart like you to ignore the world's big issues. So how do you see the current situation around the world? Is that a too big a question before you go? And
wow, that's a really big question. I could talk probably an hour on that. The point I want to make is, I think, a big problem is not countries or companies, it's people, because we are, I mean, organizations, countries are always constituted by people. So, and we have to dig deeper. I think as a people, we have a problem. We are by nature quite selfish and think about ourselves and not about others, and that often leads to conflict. And that's the first statement I make. The second statement is, if we are not really trying to understand another person, then we always will get into conflict. And for example, in the Ukrainian war, and I put a video together, I lament and cry over the suffering of the people in the Ukraine. And I love the Ukrainian people. I love the Russian people. I love people from all over the world. And I've proved that on many projects. What I'm saying is, this war was totally unavoidable if people would have more communicated and tried to understand the thinking of all parties involved. And certain third parties who got involved were not helpful at all and actually were misleading even in this conflict. So a very sad situation, and just a warning sign. 90% of all conflicts are the result of miscommunication and misunderstandings. And when I look at the Ukraine, I have friends in the Ukraine and in Russia. I'm crying over it because they're currently killing each other. And my prayer, literally my prayer, is that this war comes to an end, but also then that we as individuals, it starts with ourselves. We can talk, the government should, or the leaders should, but that's not the right approach. Rather than thinking of what is outside our control, like, for example, running a country, this is outside our control, but we can have a positive impact on our neighbor, on the waiter who brings us the food, people we engage with, our co-workers, the people in the subway station. We can share kindness, we can share love, we can share understanding, we can be helpful. A smile doesn't cost anything, so we can make the people feel appreciated, and that can have a positive impact. We cannot change the world, but we can have an impact on the world by having a positive impact on the people that we engage with on a daily basis.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your sharing. I totally agree. Like many things, if we have good communication, we can have better results, avoid so many disasters, people lives. It's really bad. Thank you. I'll offer you go. I heard that you have a lot of ding. Okay, thank you so much. This is a great conversation, and thank you for sharing your stories. And you're such an inspiring person, and I hope that I believe we can learn a lot from you. I hope I can have a chance to talk to you next time. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much too for the nice interview.